and ended up becoming friends. Surprisingly, I felt safer with this lesbian, dark-skinned, Hispanic last name, Native American, atheist. That's who is my safe place.
I'm Sarah Cunningham, pronouns are she, her, founder of Free Mom Hugs.
And I'm Katrina Cobb, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the program director and social media manager for Free Mom Hugs. And we are proud to be a part of the mission and the movement that is keeping queer kids alive.
Our mission at Free Mom Hugs is to empower the world to celebrate the LGBTQIA+ community through visibility, education, and conversation.
And in our second season of the Pride 365 podcast, we're focusing on Out for Equality. With Coming Out Day on October 11th and an historic election approaching, we felt it was important to speak to LGBTQ+ folks about their coming out stories and to hear devoted allies describe their journeys to not just supporting the LGBTQ+ community, but fighting boldly for their equality.
This presidential election is one that no one can keep their vote silent on. In order to ensure a safe and free America for our LGBTQ+ family and friends, the time is now to come out for equality. In 1978, Harvey Milk, California's first gay man to be elected to public office, said, "Gay brothers and sisters, you must come out. Come out to your parents. I know that it's hard and will hurt them, but think about how they will hurt you in the voting booth. Come out to your relatives. Come out to your friends, if indeed they are your friends. Come out to your neighbors, to your fellow workers, to the people who work where you eat and shop. But once and for all, break down the myths, destroy the lies and distortions for your sake and for their sake." When I first heard about Kathy Baldock, it was at the Q Christian Fellowship Conference, and her breakout session for 3 years in a row completely sold out. Like standing room only. I couldn't get in, and I was so disappointed, but what a wellspring of information she is.
I can't wait to hear from her, and I know that the stories that she tells, but the facts that she shares are what are life-saving to so many people in the church, whether you are the parent of a gay kid or whether you are a gay kid. You need this information.
I've learned so much from her.
Yeah, we can't wait to get to it. Let's save some lives together.
Yeah. When Chasten Buttigieg was asked on an elevator at our Love Revolution conference, "What is Free Mom Hugs?" he responded simply, "It's a group of moms keeping queer kids alive."
And we are so excited to announce the second annual Love Revolution Conference. Last year in Oklahoma City was an incredible success with over 300 people in attendance who all left empowered to love bigger and better. We can't wait to gather again in Dallas, Texas, April 4th through 7th in 2025, so we can continue to change the world together.
I found this poem on Pinterest. I don't know who the author is, but I think it's perfect. Thank God for boys. Thank God for girls. Thank God for humans in this world. Boys can like pink. Girls can wear blue. Your reaction is up to you. When someone's proud, let them be them. Let boys be girls. Let girls be men. Don't hate because they're different, as that's still up to you. In fact, you should be proud of them, for they've come out to you.
Sarah, we are about to blow some minds today with our next guest. Kathy Baldock is an amazing ally, and her research and her work is why we had to have her on the podcast about Out for Equality. She is an out ally, and we could not do this without her. Her research, her intelligence have created everything needed to prove that the Bible never actually said anything about homosexuality.
You know, we know so much pain has been caused by the church and bad theology. We see that pain at our events. That pain is how Free Mom Hugs got started, right? When I heard horror stories of kids not getting hugs from their mother, because they were a lesbian, or hearing from kids sleeping in their cars. That's when a small group of us banded together to gather gift cards and bus passes just to be that loving presence in the lives of those who need it the most.
We have talked often about how in the beginning of Free Mom Hugs, our mission was like pulling kids out of the river that had been abandoned by their parents and wounded by the church. And as the mission started to grow and we became a national nonprofit, we realized we needed to go upriver and figure out why these kids were being thrown in the river in the first place.
Yes, and Kathy Baldock, she's upriver. I'm so grateful that she's here today and is about to take us all upriver so we can save some lives.
What's good on social media these days?
Free Mom Hugs! Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And hey, we got a YouTube channel with all our videos and educational panels.
And our website is full of valuable information and resources to help you on your journey. You can also find ways to get involved, donate, and purchase your authentic Free Mom Hugs merchandise. We refer to our OG shirts as the billboard of our mission. When people see someone in a Free Mom Hug shirt, they instantly know that person is a safe and supportive ally. And with every purchase, the funds go directly back into the organization so we can continue on the mission to create visibility, education, and conversation. Go to freemomhugs.org today.
We are so grateful for all of you who continue to give and to support the mission. I know that each dollar goes far and wide and makes a difference in the lives of the LGBTQ plus community and those who love them. I'm Sarah, and joining us today remotely from Reno, Nevada is our very dear friend, Kathy Baldock. Kathy, to me, is a pillar, a wellspring of information and education. To learn from her is like getting educated on all things, like the history of human sexuality and science and evidence, all the things that we need to celebrate the community. And I've learned so much from her. I can't wait for our followers to meet her and hear from her. And, you know, she says that I give the people a hug and she kicks them in the ass.
There you go. That's the best teamwork.
Yes.
Kathy Baldock, author, LGBTQ advocate, and leading expert on the historical and current discrimination against the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community, in particular from the socially conservative Christian church and political sectors. Her first book, Walking the Bridgeless Canyon, pieces together cultural and religious persecution and discrimination of the LGBTQ community. She also founded the nonprofit Canyon Walker Connections in 2021, which exists to repair the division existing between social and Christian conservatives and the LGBTQ communities through education, training, encouragement, and dialogue in both secular and religious environments. Baldock, based in Reno, Nevada, researches, writes, speaks, and teaches on the intersection of faith and human sexuality. At her seminars, she unrolls an 18-foot timeline and helps us make sense of political, religious, and social milestones from the Old Testament through 2016. Baldock's research was fundamental in the much-acclaimed documentary, 1946, The Mistranslation That Shifted Culture. The film reveals how culture and politics led to a biblical mistranslation and the origin of the anti-gay movement among Christians. She is a world changer, and we are so glad to have her with us today.
Hello.
Hi, Kathy.
And those things are all actually true, so yay.
Oh, well, good.
Well, I don't know about world changer, but I do unroll quite large timelines. Last weekend it was a 24-foot timeline because I had the space. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wait until after 2015.
Oh,
2000.
you know,
I don't know where that came from.
She's okay.
Cliff.
I have a lot to say about a lot of things.
2015. Man, you're gonna have to add a lot more after November, I think.
Yes, and
Right.
into 2025.
Bring it up to speed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We know you and love you, but we may not know everything about you, and we know our guests don't know everything about you. So give us a little bit just about your background and some history before you came the Kathy Baldock that we all know and love.
I was born in New York City, and I think that has a lot to do with my personality and my boldness. New Yorkers are known to be brash, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'll own that. I was born in '56 in New York City, and even that adds to who I am because I went to high school. I was a freshman in high school in the '70s and a freshman in college in '74, and I'm still convinced that the 1970s were one of the best decades we've had yet for women in this country. The women that came before me in the women's movement and the feminist movement fought for women, young girls, young women like me, to have a voice in their society, and that was quickly taken away in the 1980s by the merger of religion and politics. So I was in this sweet spot, in this place to be born, that gave me confidence and boldness. And then I moved after college. I moved to Seattle and got a job that worked on a master plan down here in Reno. And when the master plan passed, the engineering office I worked for moved down here, and that's how I got to Reno and married my husband, had 2 kids. Both kids are straight. I was married for about 20 years when my husband didn't want to do it anymore. And that actually was pivotal in my life too, because I think if I had remained in that marriage and remained in that evangelical bubble, I wouldn't have been able to, first of all, develop the relationships I have with the LGBTQ community, but I also wouldn't have had the freedom to explore other ways of showing up and experiencing life and thinking, because you guys know me now, but at the time I was quite traditional in being submissive and following my husband. And so he never would have allowed, don't you love that word?
Mm-hmm.
He never would have allowed any of this. And so I don't even have any regrets about the divorce, because I really like who I am and where I am now and how my brain is able to operate the way it's always been intended to operate. So yeah, I'm single. I live in Reno, Nevada. I live right at the edge of the Sierra foothills. Even the environment I live in adds to who I am, because it allows me a lot of time to, every day I hike. And when I go out and hike, my mind is clear and I come up with really interesting questions to ask myself and thinking and putting things together. So all of those pieces, where I come from, experiences I've had, where I live, straight kids, they're all positive parts of what makes me me. And yeah, I'm happy with where I am. Yeah.
I love that. There is definitely only one Kathy Baldock, although we could use about 5 million more. However, we're lucky to know this one.
Some people don't think so. Yeah.
What amazes me about you is that you have the ability, I could not do this, to read books about opposing viewpoints and things that we would now look at and say, this is absurd that someone could write this book. This is full of misinformation. And yet you read it and value it like any other book. And then you review it and you help educate people with misinformation as well, if that makes sense. You let people know what's out there, what battles we're fighting.
But it also helps me to know what the objections are, so that when I do work, I write to and speak to objections. And when it becomes time for having public conversations with people who aren't, who don't think I'm a lovely person, I'll be able to, nobody will ever be able to say to me, you don't understand this point of view, you only read inside your bubble, which is an accusation for a lot of types of activists. That is not true. Mm-hmm. And I even forced myself to read Sarah Huckabee Sanders' book 2 summers ago. And that was a great struggle, struggle.
Yes.
Oh,
see, you are a devoted ally right there. I crown you as an ally just because you did that.
Yeah, for reading even that book. But I read them all. Yeah, I read most of them or listen. Mm-hmm.
I love it. Well, and it makes me think about your own book, and I'm sure the time is probably coming where someone's going to want to ban it if they haven't already. And of course, we will fight that as much as we can. But I want to go back a little bit to when you began the process and when that book came to life. And it did come from your hiking journeys as you were healing from a divorce, and you met an incredible person that has been a part of your story named Neto. And our audience needs to know about Neto.
I just got off the phone with her an hour ago. When I was going through the hardest part of my divorce, so I was hiking, and part of the reason I started hiking every day was so that I could get a place away from my family to process my feelings, because my kids didn't even know divorce was coming.
Wow.
And I had to have a place where I could cry and talk out loud and pray and be angry and just dump all of that stuff on a trail. And even the trails weren't used as much then. And I kept running into Neto. I kept seeing her and seeing her. And one day it was I had had a horrible Saturday morning. My husband was screaming at me. He was having an affair. So all of that frustration was his his bad behavior that I didn't know about.
Yep.
And so he was trying to get me to react, and I was doing the best I could to not overreact and retaliate adultery and all those things. And I just didn't want to go home. And I'd seen Neto so many times that I asked her, she was just starting up the trail and I was finishing. And I just said, can I walk with you? I see you here all the time. And so when we started walking together, we realized we kept, the same pace. We took the same cutoffs. We valued hiking and the outdoors the same way, and we became friends. And in that becoming friends, surprisingly, I felt safer with this. I didn't know then, but I really strongly suspected she was a lesbian. This lesbian, because the language she used. She would say partner. It was just language that she used. And so with this lesbian, dark-skinned, Hispanic last name, Native American, atheist. And that's who was my safe place.
I love that.
And I was able to talk to her about what was going on in my marriage. And I was allowed to hurt in front of her. And as the years went on and my Christian girlfriends that had been my life for decades started dropping off, it was Neto that stayed consistent. So I've been friends with Neto for 23 years, and she is absolutely my closest friend. And why she called me this morning is because I spoke in LA this weekend, and she knows when I speak and hang out with all my LGBTQ friends as I'm on the road, I put everything into it and I come home tired. So she was calling to remind me this morning that the key to my success this week was rest, Kathy. You make sure you rest. Don't go after all. That's Neto. I mean, She cares about everything about me and knows me. And so she is still in my life, and that is who God used to slow me down, bring me into community, and see people for who they were. And then another guy in my Italian class, Tom Durante, I was paired up with the only gay man in class the first night of Italian as my speaking partner. So in the span of about 6 weeks, maybe 5 or 6 weeks, all of a sudden I had these 2 gay people in my life. And before that, it was just really evangelical Christians, strong Republicans, leaning towards charismatic evangelical Christians, and homeschoolers. That's a pretty isolated group of people.
Yeah, it's a good bubble.
They were the people it was a bubble.
Yeah.
So can you imagine into this bubble come these gay people, and then I start being friends with them and inviting their friends into my bubble with my friends? It was an interesting few years.
Yeah, valuing their stories.
Yep.
Yeah. Take us to that pivotal moment. The journey's been up until when you ask that question. When Neto confided.
One day in particular, when we were hiking, and she was telling me she was leaving to go to an all lesbian camp out. And I just, I camp too, and I go with other people. And And she would never go with me on any of those things. And she just kept telling me she didn't feel safe. And, I'm not in her world. I'm not in her, I don't understand what she understands because I'm not her. And when she finally said to me, Kathy, I'm everything you're not. I'm lesbian. I'm brown skinned. I'm native. She said, I feel comfortable where I do. And she said, and not even God loves me. That was the question. That was the statement after 5 years of relationship with her, that it was such a simple statement because I can really think big thoughts. But that's a very simple statement. So I came home from that hike that day and really sat on my back deck and I just asked out loud, I said, is that true, God? Do you not love my friend Neto? It devastated me because I thought, I'm such a flawed, limited human being. I mean, I'm a nice person, I'm a kind person, but I sure have people I don't like. But God is this unconditional lover, and he doesn't love my friend Neto. It didn't seem logical to me. And that's when I started going down the path of academics because I wanted to understand. I was in this place where none of my gay or lesbian friends ever complained about the church excluding them. So this was, 15 years ago. This conversation wasn't going on. And then none of my church friends seemed to want to be in relationship with gay and lesbian friends. So I thought everybody was happy on their own sides of this fence. So all I was trying to do in the beginning was just be nice to everybody and to get people to relationally get along. I had no intentions of being this academic, theological reconciler of the two sides. That was never my idea. I just wanted people to be kind to one another because I thought both groups of people had value and they couldn't see it in one another. So that's all I was hoping for until Neto made that statement. And I thought, I've got to see what's true about that.
In 2014, in an article in the Good Men Project, you were referred to as the woman pastors warn you about. Now, I've seen you challenged and attacked by those threatened by your research that will threaten your religious ecosystem of power. How do you cope with being seen as an enemy of the church when, in truth, you're just wanting to heal families and save lives with your research?
I've gotten wise over the years about who I engage. I'm going to name names that are people that I will never engage. And I will never engage them because I don't find them to be reasonable in their Christian ethics of how they deal with others. If people cannot see the equal humanity of LGBTQ people, their learning curve is too steep for me. Whether they can't see it or they refuse to see it, or it is part of their shtick by now and they won't see it because they'll lose followers. But I will never engage James White, Robert Gagnon, Michael Brown, people like that. I would consider people like Preston Sprinkle, although I don't think he's even shiftable. I think he's found himself a comfortable spot of being nice to people. Same thing with Sean McDowell. I've met and spoken to Sean McDowell quite a bit. Josh McDowell's son. Josh McDowell was instrumental. His books were instrumental in me becoming a Christian in my 20s. And Sean has taken kind of over that empire, rewriting his father's books. A lot of royalty coming in there. Speaks at Biola. Is influential at Summit Ministries, speaking to high school and college-age students. Teaches at a local Christian high school. And I can't sometimes imagine that with all the information they are given, they won't shift, although they will say they won't shift. They will shift if they see God showing them different. I don't believe that about some people because their profession, their entire money base and reputation within community depends on them keeping these stances. They may soften and become somewhat pastoral, but if they're not at least kind, I won't go there, because often the nasty antis, their followers are worse. So if I were to engage some of these pastors publicly, it's not just that 1 hour that they debate me. It's forever and ever that I am on the, the target of primarily male audiences who are severely misogynistic. And along with that, along with the homophobia, also becomes intensely racist, although they would never mention. I mean, it's a package deal.
Yeah.
And they are a waste of my time. And I don't want to be dragged around in the mud with unkind people. Because if I could invest an hour in some mom that's looking for real information or producing something that works, then that's a better use of my time than debating James White or someone like that.
Yeah, and I think that's where your allyship is so powerful and so important. And I know I value it tremendously. And I know that I'm not the only one. I know that you have quite a family of us queer folk who love you and see you as safe, see you as their defender and protector. And I just wanted to recognize that and even ask about, I'm sure, kind of like Sarah, you find yourself at weddings and at graduations, and you're just a pivotal part of those of us that need someone on our side.
2 weeks ago, I was in LA as well, and I had met, I'll use first names, I'd met Paul in 2007 at my first GCN conference, QCF now, GCN then, and he was the head of the Waiting Until Marriage group, and I was the first straight person to go to GCN conference, and I was I wanted to go to everything to listen to what people said, and I thought, waiting until marriage, I'm still in the place where like gay people have sex with, anybody and everybody. I'm just trying to figure this stuff out. I had never even known gay Christians existed 2 weeks before this. And so I went and listened to him, and I sat right next to him and introduced myself. And then the next year I sat next to him at the conference again and had to introduce myself to him again. Same thing with the third year. I mean, he just, as I said at his wedding, it's clearly this man is gay because he never saw my female face. He never remembered me year to year. But we obviously became friends over the years. And when it came time to officiate his wedding, he wanted me to do it. And because his fiance, he had read book, what made sense to him was this historical context. So for his fiance, I was pivotal in his understanding, and Paul, I had just known for so long. So they asked me to not only do their wedding. Sarah, I know you do weddings, but I've done something. I know you bring rocks. I bring something even more interesting to the table. I brought a timeline to this wedding.
Yes,
they
you did.
asked me to do a timeline of their relationship, and it ended up being an unbelievable hit. So much so that two gay wedding officiants the very next week wrote me messages through Facebook and said, "Can you tell us how to do this timeline? We think it would be great." And you know what? It was great.
I believe it.
The fiance is in the wedding industry in Maui, and all of his wedding industry girlfriends were there. They're all makeup artists and costume artists. And so all of these beautiful Japanese American makeup artists were at the wedding who had been to hundreds of weddings amongst them. And they were like, "This was the best part. It made us cry. Selfie, touch, selfie." What a wonderful group of women. But it was a great addition to a wedding.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Even my mother was asked one year to walk some of my friends down the aisle when their parents wouldn't show up. My mom was asked. So yeah, I don't do as many weddings as you because my nose is in a book too much, Sarah.
Yeah. No, I get it. I'm so glad to be on this side of the story with you. Now, I mean, we could spend days talking about all that you've accomplished and what's coming up next and all the amazing things happening in your life. But to me, you're one of the most politically minded, you and Liz are probably the most politically minded people that I know. And in such division in the political climate, we have to ask, what gives you hope when you're just inundated with all of this heaviness? How do you balance that, and what gives you hope?
Two conversations even this morning. I ran into my buddy Marion, who watches my dog when I go away, and I watch her dog, both Brittany's. And Marion, was the head of Obama's campaign both times in Northern Nevada. So she's very, very political. And then Neto and I were talking on the phone as I was hiking about the Vance Waltz debate. I read a lot of politics. I listen to a lot of politics. I watch what people are saying. I don't comment sometimes, but I certainly watch Christian nationalists. I know I'm really effective in person. I'm an effective teacher in person. I'm effective with the timeline. I'm effective interacting with people. And that's where I should be instead of sitting at my desk, continuing to read and write research. But what gives me hope is I know there's fruit in what I do. I watch it. I hear it all the time. I get letters in teaching. A, a, a young trans man came to me on Sunday morning. I went to the same church that I taught at and walked up to me, like totally starstruck, wide eyes, and said, Kathy Baldock, you are a legend.
Aww.
Because now I understand this stuff. I understand this because of the way you teach it. And I think younger people expect better academics than us older folks did, especially me age older folks. We just believed what we heard, but this is an age of knowledge and technology, and you can fact check anybody at any point. And I think young people are more attracted to facts. This is certainly true that they have more LGBTQ friends than we had or have even as adults. They're not going to, for the most part, they're not going to abandon their friends, and they are going to abandon the church because it's just not authentic. They preach love, they don't show love. So I think there's even something good in younger people calling out the BS that they're seeing in churches. I'm encouraged by that. I'm encouraged by the fruit of the work I do. I know people are responding to it. And more people are willing to learn than before than just repeat what they've heard. And I know that, and I've told you too before this, one of my favorite places to teach into, and I've said to lots of people, they said, like, who do you think of when you're writing? I think of the mother of a gay kid. I think of a woman who has been raised in the church, has a sensitivity, a relational sensitivity, and wants to believe the best about her child, yet because of how we've been taught the hierarchy in the church, our allegiances to God first and then family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to give a mother information that she doesn't have to abandon her faith or her child. And by giving academics in an accessible way, I think, so that she can retain both those postures. She can still be a follower of Jesus and a mother to her child. And if I can do that and educate moms, you are in every state, every denomination, you're sitting in every church if you haven't left yet, and you can do work that I can't. And so if I can educate moms, and what I say when I teach, and I started it even this weekend when I taught in LA, I said, I'm going to give you 6 hours of stuff. You're not going to be able to handle it or process it all, but something is going to make a lot of sense to you. One section of this is going to make a lot of sense to you, how you think, how you present things, what aligns with your experiences. And from there, you're going to go out and you're going to start asking those who oppose you good questions, because sometimes it's just a good question. Like, I mean, I have a million, I've got 1,000 good questions, but you'll find your own. And if I can empower people to defend themselves and their families and their children, then I've done my job, because that's very specifically my job, is to educate and educate. And I believe that what I put out in writing and in speaking is so well resourced that I'm not stretching truth or manipulating truth. I had a pastor in the group this week, a gay pastor from the Hispanic community. He church shared with the church that I was teaching at, and very traditional perspectives on the historical context of the Bible. And I could tell an hour into this thing that he was not comfortable. And so at the first break, I went to him and I said, "How are you doing?" And he said, "This is a lot." And I said, "But if I don't put the Bible in proper context, and I continue on with origin stories and hero stories and traditions, and then lay the scriptures on top of them and try to tell you what those scriptures meant in this context of time, if I lay truth on top of a shaky foundation, it's not going to hold." And I said, "So I'm going to have to disrupt your foundation a little bit and give you the truth, the archaeological, historical, political, military context, writing, biblical truth, and then we can have a discussion, because I can't give you story, and then talk to you about truth if the foundation isn't truth." And I said, "Just hang in there with me." And I checked in again with him at lunchtime, and he just said, "Yeah, it's a lot to process." And I said, "At the end of the day, let's see where we go." And at the end of the day, he was right there with, my first book and wanting me to sign it. And he said, "You've given me a lot to think about." And I told him, "Pastor, everything I say is as close to the truth as I know it. And I don't just read one book on something or watch one archaeological historical video. I go down a rabbit hole for 2 weeks, which is why it takes me so darn long to produce things, because I'm trying to get it right and accessible. And I think it's working."
Kathy, with Coming Out Day and a very pivotal, we call it the most important Tuesday of our generation, election coming up, it is so important for people to come out for equality, whether you're a part of the community or you are an ally. And we just want to ask you, what would be your speech to empower allies, that if you're going to come out, the time is now. We need allies to come out, and why?
I would acknowledge, first of all, eventually it's the best thing you will ever do is to support people in who they are and their authenticity. But I will also acknowledge that in a lot of environments, it's difficult, even challenging for a mom of a gay kid to go to her weekly Bible study and these verses come up, and this mom to say, "I don't agree with this. This is who my child is. This is who I want." I acknowledge, first of all, that can be very challenging in some environments, and it can even have long-term impacts of who your friends will be, how you will be received in your church, even in your family. There is an impact. But at the end of that impact, I know that I am surrounded. I was just talking to someone about this just the other day, that there was a lot of stuff that fell off my life. But what it was replaced with is this richness, unbelievable richness in my life, because I'm surrounded by LGBTQ people and those that love and support them. And I don't think I could have understood two words, mercy and grace, the way I do in the reality of living amongst people who are LGBTQ and their allies. It is a completely different more Christ-like version of Christianity that I'm experiencing in this part of my Christianity, because I became affirming. But it did have a price. And in terms of the political impact, one of the things that started working on me early on was when Neto said to me, in the George Bush election, because I was friends with her, I voted for Obama, even though I was a registered Republican until Trump became the candidate. But I struggled with the Bush election. And Neto just simply said to me, she wasn't trying to pressure me. She just asked me a very simple question. She said, I know you love me. Why would you vote against me? And another simple question.
Yeah.
Well, even more so now than in the Bush years, right? Now a political vote is so distinctly for and against LGBTQ people. There's just no discussion of which party is supporting LGBTQ people and which party is trying to decimate LGBTQ people. And if you love LGBTQ people, and even if you cannot come out publicly, and you can't come out in your women's Bible studies, you can't come out to the rest of your family, and maybe you can't even come out to your own husband, go into that voting booth and do not vote against the people you love. Do not do it. Your vote is your vote. Make your vote count, and make it count for the people that you love.
Thank you, Kathy. Sarah, I just love it when we talk to Kathy Baldock every time. There's something new and brilliant. And I think what she has told us, and we have known and you have said, is that we have seen the power of fear and ignorance, and we have seen the power of love and education. And Kathy is the epitome of education, and you know the power of education in your own life and accepting Parker and your journey.
Right. When I went into my closet, I just needed to hear from someone who shared my faith that it's all right to search the matter out, because when you do search the matter out, you get educated. And really, beyond that, the only choice is to remain in fear and ignorance of what it means to have a gay child, to love your gay child, to celebrate and have an authentic relationship with your child. What I also love about Kathy is that she offers faith-based resources, and that's what we need.
Right.
And I know sometimes we get pushback as an organization because we talk about religion, we talk about faith, we talk about scripture, but how can we not talk about the very things that got us into this mess?
Exactly.
And Kathy has a way to give us, to empower us, to help us understand better. And she and I both were raised in the generation where you did not question authority, you did not talk about sex, and you don't talk about money. And that's how we got into this mess. And I'm so thankful that she's doing the work, she's done the work, and she will continue with her book, Walking the Bridgeless Canyon. And she has an amazing website. You can find her, Kathy Baldock. And the 1946 film, which is a powerful resource. What I would have done to have had that when I was trying to figure things out, because when I went to Barnes & Noble.
Yeah.
And I could not find any faith-based resources.
Yeah, I know. And for me coming out as a Christian, but in the community, I was hungry for anything that would be fact-based, not just opinions and not just people saying that they love me and didn't see something wrong, but I needed facts and I needed proof. And
do you think you needed permission?
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, because I do think it goes to that thinking of you don't want to question authority. You need to take the Bible as inerrant and perfect. And I love that Kathy reaches down into that place of the parts of it that are man-made and man-made with ill intention. Mm-hmm. And she's saving a lot of lives with that truth. So.
Yeah. So if you're listening now, we give you permission. You have permission to search the matter out. And when you do, you're going to be empowered, enlightened, a lot happier,
Right. Free.
Free.
Yeah.
Here's some snail mail. To the mom that hugged me. This was my first mom hug, not just by your organization, but ever. I've had quick pats on the back and friendly gestures from moms before, but this was different. I've always been strong because my mom was tough. I wasn't allowed to cry, and hugs were certainly not acceptable. So in your 30-second bear hug and your simple, "It's okay," I let go of the armor that I've been carrying for so long. Thank you to the complete stranger that made me feel seen, that let me cry into her shoulder, and certainly not this experience I was expecting. Shared with permission. We love educating folks, that's for sure, and one of our new favorite ways to educate is our Love Revolution Conference. Last year, it was such a success with over 300 people in attendance. It was an incredible experience to have our chapter leaders, our volunteers, and allies all in one place, learning how to advocate for their kids and the LGBTQ plus community together.
It was such a hit. I think we should do it again.
Let's do it. How about next year, April 4th through 7th?
It's a date. Stay tuned and keep checking freemomhugs.org for more information.
Won't you stand up, won't you stand up, won't stand up.
That's it for this episode of the Free Mom Hugs Pride 365 podcast, Out for Equality. Now promise this, Mama, you'll get out and vote.
This podcast is produced by our friends at Good Faith Media. Learn more at goodfaithmedia.org. Our music comes from Pond 5. Our theme song titled Stand Up is by queer Nashville artist Heather Mae, spelled M-A-E. She is at Heather Mae Music on all social media platforms. You can listen to Stand Up and more of Heather Mae's music wherever you stream or download music online. Check out the show notes for more.
Join the Free Mom Hugs community at freemomhugs.org where you can learn, connect, and be proud.
Be sure to subscribe to this podcast, give us a like and rating, and tell your friends about it. We know there is someone out there who needs to know they are loved and valued, and that a whole community of people are fighting for them.
If you find yourself needing support and someone to talk to, don't hesitate to call or text 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, or reach out to our friends at the Trevor Project at thetrevorproject.org. Remember, you are not alone. Now stop what you're doing and let someone know that you love them, even if it's yourself.
Won't you stand up, won't you, won't you stand up, won't you stand up, won't you, won't you stand up, won't you stand up, won't you.